Hello, today I'm doing a shape comparison between the Zowie S2-C and the Vaxee NP-01S. These two mice are very often compared to each other. I very frequently see the NP-01S referred to as the ergo or the asymmetrical S2. And while I do think these two mice are very reminiscent of each other, I think this is a little bit reductive and they overall feel pretty different in hand. So today I really want to go over these differences in depth to really help you guys make a decision on which mouse will be better for you. Alright, let's get into it. Both of these mice have the same design goal of creating a rear humped mouse that is very suitable for claw grip. This similarity is the most visible when you view them from the side. You can see that the profiles of these mice are exactly the same. They both rise very quickly in the back and reach their highest point in this back third. They then quickly taper off to create a lower button height and overall flat top. They are also the exact same length of each other. The biggest difference, however, comes in the overall heights. The NP-01S is shorter at every single point and can really be described as a squished down S2. The curvature is exactly the same, but it all occurs about a millimeter or so shorter than the S2. Another key difference is the grip width. The NP-01S is very thin at the grip, and the S2 in comparison feels quite bulky. When I line the two mice up with the thumb groove, you can very clearly see how much thinner the NP-01S is right here where you grip it. While this difference may not seem like a lot, much like the height, this is all you need for the NP-01S to feel significantly thinner in hand. This combination of lower button height plus thinner grip width makes the front end of the NP-01S feel much smaller than the S2. However, when you consider the entirety of the mouse, these two mice actually feel rather close in size, with the NP-01S only being slightly smaller overall. This is mainly due to it still retaining some length, despite being so thin and low. The NP-01S does feel slightly shorter than the S2 though, because the low profile hump helps you pull it deeper into your hand. But it really is a pretty minor difference. I would say that overall these lengths feel pretty much identical. For comparison, the Viper Mini actually feels quite similar to the NP-01S in the front. Their grip widths are very similar and they both utilize a very low button height. However, the Viper Mini is significantly shorter in comparison. This makes it so that these two mice, the S2-C and the NP-01S, feel much closer in size than the NP-01S and the Viper Mini, despite these similarities in the front end. This longer length really makes the NP-01S feel much larger than it should be, based on the front end grip feel. Now the two things that are the most similar about these two mice is the hump. As I showed in the profile, they have the same general curvature here, and the actual widths of the hump, as you can see here, are exactly the same. The lower profile nature of the NP-01S also doesn't make the hump feel any smaller because of the angle it puts your wrist at. A lower button height will naturally bring your hand closer to the pad, so an overall shorter hump doesn't really affect hand feel that much, when the entirety of the mouse is also shorter as well. Really, the humps on these two mice feel incredibly similar in both their size and position. The difference is in the subtle curvatures instead, most notably here and here on both mice. The S2 hump feels very boxy because you can see right here it very quickly goes perpendicular to the pad instead of having a very smooth round off like you can see here on the NP-01S. The swooping nature of the right side of the NP-01S's hump overall gives you much more room to place your hand in this region. When I use a very aggressively tilted grip on the S2, I find this ridge right here making a very direct point of contact right in this area of my hand. Instead of filling out a portion of my hand, I feel a very discrete point of contact right here across my palm. With the NP-01S, I can very easily follow this curve along with my hand and get a very tilted grip. Here I feel this entire area of my hand here making contact, rather than just one line like I felt on the S2. This overall makes tilted grips feel much more comfortable on the NP-01S because instead of feeling a very discrete pressure point, all the force is distributed more evenly across my hand. I generally prefer these very tilted style grips I could easily get on the NP-01S. However, on the S2-C, I more feel it forcing a flat grip in comparison. If you get too tilted, it starts creating very odd pressure points right along these ridges in the hump. But with more flat grips, these two humps really do feel eerily similar. The only difference is that the NP-01S just makes slightly more contact on this right side, but once again, it is a very minor change. These differences in hump curvature will really only ever be felt with a very tilted grip like I use. Now, the biggest difference between these two mice is of course in the sides. The NP-01S has an asymmetrical or ergonomic design, while the S2-C has a symmetrical or ambi design. These ergonomic curves that were placed on an otherwise flat mouse is really what makes the NP-01S special to me. I seriously think that the way that the NP-01 and the NP-01S are able to combine design aspects of both symmetrical and asymmetrical mice all into one package is genuinely genius. So much care went into designing this shape and it is extremely impressive. I am very comfortable with calling these two shapes the best shapes ever created. It is truly incredible how Vaxee was able to combine the best of both worlds in these two mice. Now onto the NP-01S specifically. Where I want to start is in this thumb groove right here. You can see that the NP-01S has a much deeper thumb groove than the S2. As I said before, the overall humps are actually the same width. So it isn't that the NP-01S actually flares out more right here, it is that the thumb groove is actually deeper into the mouse than on the S2. You can also very clearly see this at the bottom of the mouse. This part right where the thumb sits is overall much closer to the sensor than on the S2. I find that this helps me dig my thumb deeper when I grip it and overall get the tip of my finger more perpendicular to the sidewall of the mouse. This perpendicular thumb placement helps with mouse control because I feel I can be much more precise. I feel I can be much stronger in this position as opposed to more relaxed. I can physically feel more tendons activating here, and I have better fine control. The S2 on the other hand gets my thumb in a much more relaxed position. While this is more comfortable, especially during longer usage, I really do miss the extra control that a more further back thumb position like this can create. But this thumb position doesn't quite work out for me on the S2, and this feels much more natural. Of course, this will be hand size dependent, and larger hands will be able to curl the thumb back more, but overall the deeper groove on the NP-01S is just much more conducive to this type of thumb position. The curves on the right side of the NP-01S also allow for much better finger position in my opinion. The sides of the S2 are completely flat, and I really feel that it allows me to place my fingers wherever I want up and down the entire length. While this is nice, and I do appreciate the freedom that it provides because I can adjust my grip on the fly depending on how I'm feeling, the NP-01S creates a much more consistent and replicatable grip. This is because the curves of the NP-01S almost act as a guide on where to place your fingers along this edge. You can see here the side swoops out to support your fingers and then creates a flat spot for you to rest them on. This feels very good for the style of grip I use here. You can see my pinky is mounted right along this edge where it is perpendicular to the curve. Then my ring finger finds a nice spot right along this flat side right before it starts to curve. I could very easily replicate this grip across multiple sessions and multiple days, because I have these curves here to guide me. The S2 on the other hand allows me for much more freedom. My ring finger and pinky aren't placed anywhere in particular, this is just where I find them to be most comfortable. Whenever I grip this mouse, my grip will slightly vary. I don't feel this is much of an issue because it does help the mouse feel more comfortable, but I really do appreciate the NP-01S for creating a more consistent grip feel. This is still a double-edged sword though, because if you don't like where the NP-01S forces you to place your fingers, then you don't really have any other options. The S2-C just gives you so much more freedom, they can really choose what works best for you. But if you do like what the NP-01S forces you to do, it feels very consistent. Alright, so now onto my general recommendations, or which mouse I think will be right for which person. So while I have been shilling the NP-01S, and I do think that it is the greatest shape ever made, alongside the OG NP-01, I do think that the S2-C will actually be the better option for the majority amount of people. This is because the S2 is an extremely boring shape. It takes very little risks, and overall has a very one-size-fits-all approach to creating a claw grip-centric mouse. In this regard, it is very reminiscent of the GPX. Both of these mice have very flat sides, and overall average grip width and length, and no real aggressive design features anywhere to speak of on the shape. Where the S2-C differs though is that it is made for claw grip. While the GPX puts its highest point right at the middle, and I feel this really makes it suitable for whatever type of grip you're using, whether it be fingertip, claw, palm, or anything in between, I feel that you won't be disserviced by this. The S2-C on the other hand chose to put its hump towards the back, and I feel that this design choice really specializes it towards claw grip. And while you can of course fingertip or palm it, I do think that there are much better options for these types of grips than this mouse. But if you do claw grip, in any type of claw grip, any sort of claw hybrid, anything, the S2-C will absolutely work for you. It is a super well-rounded and neutral shape that you just cannot go wrong with. The NP-01S is a much more specialty shape in comparison. If you want something that creates a very low, thin, and pencil-esque feel while also retaining some length and hand support, then the NP-01S is a perfect option for you. Even if these aren't to your exact preferences though, I still do absolutely think that this mouse is worth a shot. Because if this shape works for you, it'll really work. These curves are really just so genius that if you're able to find a suitable grip, I don't think you can possibly beat it. It's just a near perfect shape. So, in summation, S2-C, absolutely cannot go wrong with it. Any type of claw grip will work. And unless you're a toddler or kawaii Leonard, I think the size is also going to be fine. It's just right in the middle of all claw grip mice. And very impressively balanced compared to other claw grip mice. You just cannot go wrong, I cannot overstate that enough. But if you want to try a mouse with a slightly smaller and more precision feel to it, then the NP-01S is absolutely godly. Alright, thank y'all for watching. I think that both of these mice are incredible picks and overall feel somewhat similar. So I really hope that I was able to help you figure out which one is going to be more suitable for you today. If you have any questions, please drop them down below in the comments, and I'll see y'all in the next one.